The NHL trade deadline has come and gone, and we're taking a peek behind the curtain to see what Boston Bruins general manager Don Sweeney was able to accomplish today.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show, sometimes twice daily show, where we discuss all things Spoked Beat. Today is Friday, March 8th, and I want to thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. This is the second episode today because it is trade deadline day, and we're breaking down two trades and one signing that the Bruins announced so far here on Friday. Pending any late incoming moves, it looks as though Don Sweeney is done. On Monday's show, we'll discuss his thoughts on all of this as he's scheduled to meet with the media at 3:30 p.m. Quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts at ENC McLaren. Before we get into the Bruins stuff, a massive deal between the San Jose Sharks and Vegas Golden Knights dropping right before the deadline. Thomas Hertl going from San Jose to Vegas for a first, a couple thirds, 17% retained salary. Hertl at $6.75 million. He was due like $8 million over the next 6 seasons or so. He just signed a contract extension with San Jose. He's a guy I would have loved to have had in Boston, but they don't have the assets to make that happen. What they did do, let's begin with Pat Maroon, the big rig, coming over from the Minnesota Wild in exchange for forward Luke Toporowski and a 2026 sixth-round conditional draft pick. The condition is that if Maroon plays at least one playoff game for the Bruins during the 2023-24 playoffs, the sixth will be sent. If he doesn't play in the playoffs, then the sixth does not go to Minnesota. Now, Maroon, of course, has an extensive history in the NHL and with the Boston Bruins as an opponent, not with the Boston Bruins. He won the Stanley Cup in 2019 as a member of the St. Louis Blues. We all remember Game 7. He also won the Stanley Cup with the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2020 and 2021, where the Bruins played the Lightning in the bubble and in the shortened season in the playoffs. 150 career Stanley Cup playoff games, 23 goals, and 28 assists for 51 points. Originally a sixth-round pick of the Flyers back in 2007. 778 career NHL games. Not, of course, known for his pop offensively, more for his pop to the face, where he is an extremely gritty, physical, tough guy. Now, he did undergo back surgery about a month ago. He's believed to be about 2 to 3 weeks away from making his Boston Bruins debut, but that's the kind of guy that they were looking to add to the fourth line. Let's be honest, it's the kind of guy that they thought they were acquiring when they signed Milan Lucic to a 1-year, $1 million contract last summer. Things have not worked out with Lucic. He took a leave from absence from the team, or he was forced to take a leave of absence from the team following the charge by the police that has since been thrown out of court, but he's not coming back. Maroon brought in to fill that hole, to bring some grit, toughness, bring some experience to the table as well. Again, 3-time Stanley Cup winner, 2019, 2020, 2021. Going out is Luke Toporowski. He's a guy who had a pretty good AHL season last year. Hasn't been as effective for Providence with only 7 goals, 10 assists for 17 points in 49 games this season. 22-year-old undrafted winger who is from Iowa, and he will be suiting up for the Iowa Wild. I believe it's the first native Iowan who will play for the Wild's AHL club. So good for him to be able to get a chance to play back at home. And we'll see what happens with Luke Toporowski, but probably a tweener at best. Not sure he's going to make much of an impact at the NHL level. So Pat Maroon, obviously, there's also the history with Jack Edwards, where he, made some comments about Maroon's size on a broadcast. There was a bit of a backlash on social media. Edwards apologized to Maroon. It wasn't, incredibly well received. So we'll see what the reaction is from the broadcast booth and what the approach is when he finally does hit the ice. Of course, as what usually happens, there'll be guys that Bruins fans or the Bruins themselves aren't huge fans of for other teams, but once they come into Boston and, start throwing the body around or putting the puck in the net, then often we become endeared with that player. We'll see if that is indeed the case with Pat Maroon. Now, this wasn't the only deal that was made today. The Bruins also traded with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And that is a trade that we will discuss here as this bonus episode of Locked On Boston Bruins continues. If you're looking to eat better this year, then Factor is the service for you. Every fresh, never frozen meal is a chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to go in 2 minutes. You'll have over 35 different options to choose from every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. There are more than 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and get after your goals. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. Sign up and save. We've done the math. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is a dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. All right, before we get to this Peeke deal, actually, we have to touch on what did not happen for the Boston Bruins today. There was a report that dropped, I believe, last night from, low-level source, let's say, that intimated the Bruins were in talks with the Los Angeles Kings in regards to Linus Ullmark. And it sounds as though this is from Kevin Weeks. He reported on ESPN that Linus Ullmark basically nixed the deal that was set in place with the Los Angeles Kings. He said that, what was it? NHL Report or something? NHL Puck News. They said Puck Report NHL quoted Weeks as saying, the Bruins thought they had something with Linus Ullmark. There was a deal that he essentially nixed in large part based on geography. Frank Saravelli followed up on this by saying, fascinating day for the Bruins. Sounds like they had a deal on the table to move Ullmark to the Kings that didn't end up crossing the finish line. Now, the original report was Ullmark and DeBrusk in exchange for Pierre-Luc Dubois. If that's the case, Bruins might have dodged a bullet because Dubois locked in for a long time at a high cap hit, and he's been quite underwhelming for the Kings. In fact, for most of his career, he's been pretty underwhelming. Attitude issues. He gives up on plays at times. All that to say, it does look as though the Bruins did approach Ullmark about waiving his no-trade clause, and he said no, which is well within his rights. Bobby Brewski, for those of you who follow him on Twitter, he said Ullmark did look annoyed leaving Warrior Ice Arena this morning, and that was after practice. Again, geography, he didn't want to move to California, apparently. He did not want to waive his no trade. The Kings are pretty good. Who knows what the return would have been. If it was Dubois, then forget it. If it included Quentin Byfield, then that would be a huge move. But Linus Ullmark invoking his no trade clause did not get dealt. We'll see if the Bruins revisit this in the summer, because they are going to have to repay, or they're going to have to re-up with Jeremy Swayman. They are going to have to pay him a significant amount of money as an RFA, and they might not be able to afford both of those guys. Ullmark with only one season left on his contract, and it's quite possible that he is moved in order to maximize the roster and to also fit in Jeremy Swayman, who's going to be getting a huge raise. So what did not happen today, Linus Ullmark was not traded, although it appears as though he was approached to waive his no trade clause for a deal that would have sent him to the Los Angeles Kings. Jake DeBrusk was also not moved. He's a pending unrestricted free agent. Didn't appear as though there had been much movement lately in terms of contract extension talks. We'll see if this is a signal that he's going to stick around, or if they see him as an internal rental and could risk losing him as an unrestricted free agent, or indeed could choose to part ways with him as an unrestricted free agent this summer. Now it appears as though Justin Brazeau and Mason Lohrei have been sent down to the AHL as a paper move. They're still $217.5 thousand over the cap after acquiring Andrew Peeke. There's some major cap implications for that trade, and we'll discuss that here as this bonus episode continues. Don Sweeney, no doubt, did his research on the guys that he acquired and did not require to check out Indeed. But if you're hiring, you want to get the best quality candidates quickly, then Indeed is the place for you. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. You can find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. The offer is valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 job credit before March 31st. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. But if you need to hire, then you need Indeed. The Bruins did do a couple other things on the blue line today. The big move was acquiring Andrew Peeke from the Columbus Blue Jackets. They sent out defenseman Jakub Zboril and a 2027 third-round pick. Zboril, of course, was a first-round pick in 2015. Loads of potential. It wasn't a reach where he was picked. For several reasons, it just did not work out for this kid. And the times that he did look like something, those were interrupted by injury. I wish him all the best in Columbus and hope he does get a real shot there. And I think he can be a serviceable third-pairing defenseman. That's the role Peeke is going to fill here. He's a 25-year-old. He's appeared in only 23 games with Columbus this season. 1 goal, 7 assists. It's not because he hasn't been healthy. He's been oft scratched because there's a glut of defensemen, and they're trying to find the right mix. 10 goals, 32 assists for 42 points after being drafted in the second round, 34th overall of the 2016 NHL draft. Now, his strengths are more on the defensive side of the game, block shots, hits, and the like. And he's going to be asked to fill a third pairing role. It's an interesting move because the Bruins, if you asked anybody, they would say their need on defense was on the left side. Peeke is a right-hand shot defenseman who will slot in after Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo. They also, of course, have Kevin Shattenkirk over there. So we'll see kind of what the mix is there for the Bruins once the dust settles and who factors in with. What's interesting here also with Peeke is that he is signed for 2 additional seasons beyond 2023-24 at a cap hit of $2.75 million. He's now the third longest termed Boston Bruins defenseman behind McAvoy and Carlo. So the right side is set here for a while. Lindholm in the mix as well on the left side. So you have McAvoy, Carlo, Peeke on the right side. You have Grzelcyk, Lindholm, Forbort, but the Bruins, like I mentioned before, are still a bit over the cap. Maybe they LTIR Forbort, maybe they waive him. I'm not sure, but it doesn't appear as though he is in the plan at the moment. Very interesting move. Again, he was scratched a lot this season in Columbus. There was no salary retention on Columbus's part. So it really seems as though they believe that Peeke can be an effective piece on the blue line. They're stuck with him for 2 more seasons after this one. So hopefully he does become that. Again, he can block shots. He can hit, but not really much offensively. They're not looking for that from him, of course. And he's locked in for 2 more seasons. So this was a opportunity to give Zboril another change of scenery. 24 shots, 47 blocks, 44 hits in 23 games for Peeke this season. So a couple blocks a game, a couple hits per game, and he'll also be able to kill some penalties as well. So basically, the role that Forbort is playing. Is Forbort done? I mean, it's going to be difficult to fit him in cap-wise if they don't LTIR him. That's with Lindholm expected to come back tomorrow. Now, also, the Bruins re-signed Parker Wotherspoon to a 1-year extension through 2024-25 with a cap hit of $800,000. He's been very, very good in a 6th, 7th defenseman role this year, and a well-earned contract extension for Mr. Wotherspoon. So that's what it looks like the Bruins have done. Acquiring Pat Maroon from the Minnesota Wild for a conditional 6th-round pick. The condition being if he plays 1 playoff game, they send that 2026 pick to the Wild. Andrew Peeke for Jakub Zboril and a 3rd-round pick in 2027. Parker Wotherspoon contract extension. And apparently there was a conversation between management and Linus Ullmark about potentially waiving to go to Los Angeles. And Ullmark said no. He wants to stick around through the balance of this season at least. We'll see if they revisit this possibility in the summer when he'll still have a no-trade clause, but it will be not as many teams, I believe. Anyways, that's it for now, my friends. Thank you for jumping on with me and enjoying this episode. On Monday, we'll analyze what Don Sweeney had to say about the trade. We will talk about Saturday's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins and continue to evaluate the NHL landscape here now that the NHL trade deadline dust is settled, but you can count yourselves caught up on all things black and gold. Take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. Have a fantastic weekend. And wow, Thomas Hertl to the Vegas Golden Knights. Linus Ullmark not to LA. I'm reeling over all of this. Take care, friends. Have a great weekend.